What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, with me now being 22 hours into the game. Highly specific number. I know normally you kind of round. I passed 20, so I thought, why not just keep going? I got a lot to say. I've done, I would say, quite a bit of things in those 22 hours. And I kind of want to go over what I've done and, again, my positives and negatives, because I freaking love this game. Okay, let me just start off by saying that this isn't obviously a full review. There's still more to go with the story, and I got to see what they end up, changing down the road, if they change anything. But I want to kind of talk up till, where I'm at. So here's the deal. I'm on chapter 7, kind of early chapter 7. I've done so many things. I've done a lot of the world intel. I would say to the point that I'm at, I've done probably like 95% of world intel. I've done all of the side missions except for 2 that I'm halfway done with both of those 2. Again, chapter 7 in terms of the story. I've done as much Queen's Blood as the game has given me, from the puzzles at Costa del Sol to the championship, back at Junon. All of them. I've done every Queen's Blood, and that game is an absolute masterpiece. Fort Condor, I don't know if it keeps going. I don't think it does, but I did all 4 of those, fought the captain, all that jazz. The game is just spectacular. Let's start with the only downside to it that, it's been made a big deal of. You might say, Alex, what do you think of it? So the performance, right? The textures, the looks. It's an interesting game. And I don't say that as I'm some sort of fanboy, I have to defend it. The game at times looks stunning. It looks unbelievably good. And Remake, did the same thing. Now, I think Remake was a bit more polished all around, right? But when this game goes for it in cutscenes, or if it's heavy CG, you see kind of towards the beginning, there's just some times where the game looks like one of the better games that's ever released. It really does. And Remake did the same thing. There's some big CG moments in Remake where it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, and it's 4 years old at this point. So and that's what makes it so weird, because this game is actually very colorful. It's very full of life, and a big part of this game is kind of the journey, right? Seeing the actual world that you're supposed to care so much about. And you do, right? The more you see of these different cities, the different grassland kind of regions, the more you see this stuff, you're like, oh, you know what? This is the world that we're defending, against Sephiroth, right? It's a really clever, I think, thing. And it works so well here because the world does look so good. But it is mixed with some, not great visuals. In terms of kind of close-up things, right? There is pop-ins. There is, the textures are very, very weak, kind of everywhere, right? Anywhere you go, the textures, whether it's a wall or a house, some sort of building, right? The doors, just the wood, so many things is going to look very low resolution. But it's weird. 2 things. One, I don't care too much, and I think I don't care too much because it's also balanced at times by beauty. Honestly, you go to Costa del Sol and you just look at the beach and just some of the lighting things that are going on. The game can also look really good, and the character models can look really good. I don't know. For me, it's not a big deal. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't really care too much, but it definitely, you can say it. I don't think you're wrong. You're factually wrong by pointing that stuff out. But to be honest with you, that's kind of the only thing. I guess there is repetition with the world intel and stuff, but you know what? They found a way to make it pretty, enjoyable. I'm having fun going around doing the crystals, doing the kind of chocobo hunts when they, look for treasure. A lot of, the intel repeats, right? So you're going around the world, and there's those yellow dots, and there is a lot of them per region, but it's kind of fun because you're either leveling up, or you're increasing your bond, or you're getting rewards. I think what you get for doing the things that you do in the game is actually very much worth it. And I think that's probably the blend that needs to work in order to kind of pull it off, right? Side missions, I actually talked about side missions for Remake. Not a fan. Not a fan of the side missions of Remake. And Final Fantasy has struggled. Final Fantasy 16 had some really good ones, but overwhelmingly were terrible. I think the side missions in 16, there was maybe 5 or 6 that were really, really, and I can still remember them, but then there was just everything else that was the most, blatant fetch quest. There was really nothing to it. It didn't advance anything. It didn't feel substantial. Not here, though. And I'll tell you why. Because the biggest strength of this game is the characters, and every side mission has a connection to a character, right? So it kind of links up a character with you that maybe you're kind of isolated to that character, or it's just that character is going to get something once you do the side quest. And I actually think that really helps because it makes it more like personable, where, you know, you're going, I mean, there's a recent example where you actually go on a date with Aerith. And it's really charming. Like, she's really cool. And she makes a lot of jokes or, like, advancements on Cloud. Like, hey, we should treat this like a date. And he's like, I don't want to. And it's like, it's a good back and forth because Cloud has no personality, right? But, like, a lot of side missions are like that, where there's maybe it's the character that's giving you the quest is kind of like they got a personality to them or whatever it might be. But I do think it's dependent on the characters, and that's a good thing because the characters are very strong. And then the side missions themselves actually have a good amount of diversity. Like, you know, the Aerith one, like I was saying, Aerith, you go around, you do some mini games, you actually have to hunt for seashells, but then there'll be other ones that'll lead to different things. I mean, there's more than one thing to do when it comes to side missions. Those do not repeat as much as the world intel, right? That stuff is just constant. Every region you get to, you're going to be doing the same things. Now, the levels are going to be higher, right? But you're going to do the same things of activating the towers and finding the crystals and, you know, memorizing different button combinations, right? Like, that's generally what you're going to do. I don't mind it. And again, I think the reward system actually, like, it helps it. It makes it worth doing it. And again, like, I find myself, I've said this maybe on Twitter, like, I didn't think I was going to 100% this game, and I really don't think I'm going for the platinum. The platinum just seems out of my reach. But as I'm playing, I'm finding myself doing literally everything. Like, could I at 100% my first playthrough and still not get the platinum because I don't want to play it on hard? Yeah, I probably could based off how I'm doing it right now because I'm doing everything. So the other positives, the story so far is very strong. Now, because it's so open and it's so long and it's so, you know, you go to a region, you do 500 things, you have the story, you go to another region. It does depend on how you play it because that's how I play it. I do the story stuff, then I explore and I try to 100% the area, then I go back into the chapters. When I'm doing the story, it is top tier stuff, right? Like the parade is so freaking good. The beginning, which is, you know, was part of the demo, that's so good. There's just so many great moments so far in the story. And again, I mean, I think there's 14 chapters, so I'm on chapter 7. I'm halfway there. It's very, very good, and I'm getting nervous, and I'm not going to read any comments because I'm not getting this thing spoiled on me. I don't know what happens. I have remained completely, you know, clear of spoilers. I feel proud about that, and I can tell you, though, I'm getting real nervous because that goes into another positive. The characters, as I mentioned with the side quests, they're so good. They are the heart and soul. The main cast, honestly, they are so good. It's unbelievable. And it feels different this time. Like, this game comes off differently than Remake. And I mean, I guess it should, right? Because it's the sequel. But I just replayed Remake like a month ago, and this one just has such a different, like, personality to it because you are already into it. Like, it actually doesn't take any time to kind of get you almost like readjusted. Like, it puts you into this character dynamic, right, of all these characters bouncing stuff off each other immediately. Like, it's a road trip game. That's I mean, like, okay, not in the same way Final Fantasy 15 is, right? But I mean, in 7 is the setup and everybody's meeting each other and you're developing these relationships and you're kind of setting up the world and the bigger plot and Sephiroth and all that. In this game, it's the journey to basically finding him, right? And with that, you're going to explore these different regions and see what's going on in the world and help out and do this and do that. And it just feels different. And I love it. Like, I really don't know how I can describe it. I'm probably not doing a good job. But the characters really do carry it. I mean, you know, obviously a lot has been made of Tifa. Tifa is so good, but so is it. I mean, like, Aerith is, like, purposely, you know, kind of likable in that way. I mean, those two are, I believe, legendary characters, but there really is no weak link. Like, you look at Barrett, and Barrett's just awesome in different ways than Tifa and Aerith, right? Cloud has a little bit, you know, I know I've joked about no personality, but, you know, he's got a little bit more to him than he did, at least in times, in 7 Remake. Red 13 is I mean, you know, you have him come in towards the end of 7 Remake. Now he's ended the full time. He's really awesome. Yuffie, I've just gotten to the parts where she's been, you know, kind of added. She works really well with that, you know, party dynamic. I think she might actually be one of the better additions to it because she just fits in a weird, awkward, you know, because she's so much younger than everybody else. It's just really, really fun to see her interact with everybody. But it's those interactions. It's Tifa and Aerith bouncing stuff off of each other. It's those kind of character moments that they have, whether it's in the main story, like where it's actually kind of serious, then there'll be joking parts. I mean, it reminds me a lot, and I know this comparison has been made, it does remind me of Yakuza, where it's got like a serious, like there's a serious threat, and serious things are happening and going to happen, but it also like, you do beach attire and you're messing around, and again, you go on like a date with Aerith and your chocobo is all like dressed up in a really wacky way. Like there's moments of like calmness, there's moments of, this kind of joking like mood, and you really don't see that, I'd say, all that often, because it doesn't always work, right? Like you can't always balance super serious with all this like goofy, wacky kind of stuff. It doesn't always work. It tends to work with JRPGs. Honestly, that's one of, if not maybe the only genre that kind of like opposite mood actually works for. But the game, again, I really do believe is carried by those characters. I think they're the strongest part in it. 3 other things I want to get to. Fort Condor, we'll just go very simple and very quick. I love it. It's been downgraded from Yuffie's, the intermission DLC, where you're just given like starting decks almost, and you can't mess around with them. You can't collect cards or anything. So Fort Condor is like, hey, you have missions. You have to figure out which combination works best, but you're not going to have this super in-depth thing. Still, Fort Condor is awesome. Number 2, Queen's Blood. Oh my dear God. This is their game. Look, if they want to go live service, guess what? Do this. Make a Queen's Blood mobile game, make a Queen's Blood whatever you want, charge for it. I mean, here's the thing. Would I play it and then like have to, if they lock stuff behind microtransactions, would I do that? Probably not, but the game itself is so unbelievably good, and I don't know what it is, but I actually know, you know what? I kind of do. It reminds me so much of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's what it is. Now, not exactly, because, it's a board and you're trying to get basically most possession of it, right? Most points in every single row, but cards will have like effects. There's almost like trap cards in this game, and the strategy is unreal, truly unreal. You can win it in different ways. I've seen like walkthroughs of people doing it. I haven't actually had to use it except for the puzzle one. I couldn't get the puzzle ones, but in just facing like champions and whatnot, I had my own strategy. People online had their own, and we handled it differently, and we still won. So the game is just so good. That's where the depth is. The depth that Fort Condor lost was given to Queen's Blood. You go around, you can buy, starting packs, kinda. You win a card, most of the time, not all the time, but when you face off people in like main situations, you'll win kind of an elite card that you can add to your deck. But it's very strategic. You can only have 15 cards, and at this point, I probably have like 60 cards. So like you really have to say, okay, what is the best for how I play, right? How do I actually do it? It's so unbelievably good. For those asking about Gwent, I only played Gwent in the parts that it was necessary, which is, I think, one time in The Witcher 3. That's all I've never played Gwent beyond that. Never stuck with me. This game has stuck with me. This game is my favorite card game. Video game card game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is my favorite card game of all time. All right, final thing is combat. Combat is really, really good. Okay, so, this is something that I didn't focus on the first time I played Remake all that much, and, I talked about Remake when I replayed it a month ago. The bosses in Remake are so good, and something that I just didn't think about all that much, after I originally played it. The combat is so strong in Remake, and then in this, my dear God. The combat has been improved, and I don't want to say dramatically, because it was already very strong, but it just feels even better. You look at Cloud with like kind of ranged, sword strike like moves. Their abilities are just better overall. It is a lot of fun to play as literally everybody. Now, I still struggle, just like I did in Remake. Tifa, I love her abilities. I just don't get her as a character. She might be my favorite character, like legitimate character, but I just can't get her combat style. But, it's fun to play generally as everybody. I love that you can mix up the parties and try to like find like, which characters kind of work best with each other. The boss fights in this game are also excellent. They take some real strategy to it. I will say, and I don't know how many people would like actually go into this. I pointed this out in Remake, and I'm sad to report it's literally still here right now. In, I believe, at least the default setting, so maybe you can change something that'll change this, and please let me know in the comments. But the characters, the other, your party members, what I didn't like in Remake, and it's still here now, the way they fight, they're fun to play as. And, you know, when I'm playing as, say, Cloud, and I'm like delegating, hey, Tifa, use this ability, Barrett, use this ability, that's all fine. But the characters have just a weird way of operating, the AI. They're very defensive. They'll stay alive. They will not take a lot of damage at all because they're like always blocking. But the issue is they don't really contribute much to the fight. They're not attacking very hard. And, you know, the ability bars that you need to fill up, and you only fill that up really by attacking, or that's the best way to. These people don't do it. So, you know, when I'm Cloud and I'm swinging away, I'm using my abilities, and it's like, man, would I like to use Barrett's, you know, focus shot right now? Oh, Barrett hasn't been attacking recently, so I can't use abilities. I noticed that when I replayed Remake. It's the exact same thing here. They're really good at not dying. They're really good at protecting themselves, and that's great because then I can switch to them and play as them. But if you're not playing as them, they're just not aggressive enough for my... So that hurts the combat, but the combat is still, I would say, like a masterpiece. Like, it's just it's a great system. It's fun to play as everybody. They got like the synergy moves now. Like, it's been added to where it's even better and even more fun to play and care about who you're playing with. That's all been, you know, I would say improved. It's just the one thing that I wish that they fixed. They didn't fix it. It's the exact same thing. So there you go. I mean, I'm in love with this game. 22 hours in. I don't think I'm halfway. I think I'm like 40% of the way through. I intend to, you know, get close to 100%ing this. So I'll do a full review when I'm done. I guess the stuff in the full review would probably just be the rest of the story, right? Whatever I experienced there. And we'll see what happens, you know, in that department. But more videos coming for Final Fantasy. I just got to get, you know, further through it is all. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.